Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome back to the Small Biz Better Summit. This has been such an amazing summit. Thank you all for joining us. 3 power pack days, 3 power pack speakers. This has been great. Your response, your participation, excuse me, has been amazing. Keep that up. Although this is the last and final session, keep up that same response, engagement, and participation because we love to answer your questions. We love to see what's been impactful for you. And we love just continuing to give you this value. So share all your questions, share all your challenges right there in the chat. We're going to get to as many as we possibly can. Some of your questions came from emails and some of the questionnaires that we sent out. We'll get to a few of those as well. We definitely, I will say, we won't be able to get to all of the questions, but still go ahead and put in your questions in the chat. We do try to get to several of those questions that are asked live as well because, you know, you're here and we want to take care of those questions too. So, without any further ado, so this is the marketing, sales, and marketing Q&A. Plus, this is also the summit celebration because this is the last and final session. So, or last and final session of this summit on day 3, because we actually are already in talks for our 7th summit coming up in a couple of months, and you all will get information on that. We're already excited. We have several speakers lined up for that summit, and we've already begun the recordings for that summit as well. We've begun the talks, and we've begun everything for that summit, so we're super excited about that as well. All righty, so without any further ado, we are going to jump into, before I mention that, several of you are joining us from the last session that just concluded, which was the Q&A session with Sean Smith. Absolutely amazing nuggets that were dropped. Sean is the man. He's just absolutely fabulous. Many of you are staying on from that session and glad to see you. And we see many of you have joined for this session. Glad to see you as well. So you might have heard this before. If you're new, just joining us, saying this for you guys. Enter your questions in the chat. Questions around it doesn't have to be, one of the questions we got earlier was, do the questions have to be related to the marketing sessions and the sales sessions that were in the summit? No, not at all. Any marketing questions you have, any sales questions you have, actually any business questions you have, because good marketing, good sales is holistic and incorporates your business operations, finances as well. So any marketing questions, sales questions, or business questions you have, perfectly fine. Also, challenges that you're having as well. They work. That helps us see and tailor many of the answers to the questions that you tailor the answers to your questions to the challenges that you're having. So with that, we will jump into some questions that we already have that have been coming in, and we will jump to. All right, so this question looks like it comes from one of the sessions. So just to give you a little background, if you're joining us and did not catch those previous sessions that we did. So for this summit, this 3-day summit, day 1, 2, and 3, each day I welcomed the summit, introduced the summit, welcomed you all to the summit, and we had a live marketing conversation. And that marketing conversation was marketing in uncertain times. And it was a 3-part series, one for each day of the summit. And so several of these questions are coming from that. So this question looks like it is coming from day 2 of that marketing in uncertain times. Each one of those days, I gave you 3 tips, 3 things that you should be doing for marketing, better marketing in these uncertain times that we're facing right now. So if you haven't already, make sure you go back, watch those replays. A lot of great information. Thank you all for your commentary and what you found helpful with those, because that really helps us deliver great content to you. All right, so this question looks like it comes from one of those, and the question is from Zach. Zach is asking about creativity. You were talking about creativity and making creative solutions. What are the best methods to be creative in? Okay, what are the best methods to be creative in a business you've been in all of your life? Great question, Zach. So Zach is referring to day 2, I believe, of the marketing in uncertain times, where I said one of the things you must do is be creative, both in your solutions as well as the root causes to as well as the root causes to the problems that your customers are having, your clients are having, and more importantly, your ideal clients are having. And so being creative in an environment. So how do you be creative when you've been doing this thing all your life? It's all you've ever known. That's such a great question. And it's one of those things where, first of all, I celebrate you, Zach, because you are at the awareness stage of acknowledging, hey, I'm a fish in water. Do you realize how hard it is for a fish to acknowledge that it's in water, right? You go to a fish and say, hey, man, you're in water. Get out of the water. The fish is like, what are you talking about? Because it's his environment. It's all it's ever known. So first of all, celebrating you for the acknowledgement that you realize, hey, how am I going to be creative when I've been doing the exact same thing, the exact same way, year after year after year for possibly decades, right? One thing that's important to remember is habits, and your body, we actually talked about it in the last session. A lot of the decisions you make, a lot of the behaviors that you have are not coming from your mind. They're actually coming from your body. Your body is like on autopilot. It does things automatically that you weren't even realizing that you were doing. Perfect example. You woke up this morning and you just went to the bathroom and you started brushing your teeth. Probably didn't give it a second thought. That's one of those embodied behaviors. We're not thinking about each and every stroke or how we're moving that toothbrush through our mouth, right? We're not thinking about any of that. And we probably, if you really think about it, brush our teeth in the exact same manner every single morning. That's because that motion, it's in muscle memory in our body. It's embodied in our body, right? So same thing with our daily routines. You probably drive to work, or when we were driving at least, you probably drove to work the same way every single day, or you probably had the same night routine, things that we just don't think about. So one way to increase your own creativity is to challenge your own status quo, to become conscious of the things you do on a habitual basis and switch them up. Perfect example, brushing your teeth tonight when you brush your teeth. If you normally brush your teeth with your right hand, switch it up. Try brushing your teeth with your left hand. One, your awareness will just become that much more apparent to you. Like, wow, this is tough. This is challenging. It's going to be uncomfortable. But those are some of the things that actually help create or help inspire creativity in us, because our mind is challenged to not just operate on autopilot. Same thing in your business when you are solving a problem for a customer. I don't know what your profession is. Let's say you were doing air conditioning, installing air conditioning, right? And you have that kind of methodical process, right? As long as it won't mess up the installation, try a different approach to something, or try something that you're kind of that you may not have tried before with an installation that you're pretty sure that'll work, but that'll give you a little more creativity in expanding that creative muscle. I do this a lot when I'm cooking. Cooking is one of my creative outlets. I love to cook, especially from scratch. And I never make the same thing the same way twice, because I love just experimenting. Sometimes comes out amazing. Sometimes it's like, I like the other way better. But I do that purposefully so that I can stay creative, so that we can continue to work out that creative muscle, because creativity is a muscle. Unfortunately, society doesn't encourage us to have to utilize that muscle. Society says, hey, do the same thing, do it every day, and do that every day for the rest of your life until you can't anymore. And then you'll have a you'll have a pension that you can barely live off of after you're retired or something like that, right? Doesn't really sound like a good plan, right? So that creative muscle is something that our society doesn't even promote that we exercise. But what we're telling you to do is exercise that creative muscle, do things different. When we are able to start driving again, or several places of the world that you can start driving again, or not necessarily on quarantine, take a different route to some place that you've gone all the time. Why? Because your brain is going to see different things. Your brain is going to not just ignore everything on the way of that path. It has to now see this whole new path that you're taking, and it's taking in new information that's going to fire off different neurons in your brain, and that's going to help stimulate that creativity muscle, right? So this is a practice. It's something that you start, you become aware of, and you constantly do. You make it intentional. Every day, I'm going to do something that's creative. I'm going to do something that's different. I'm going to take a different approach to something. Another tactic to being creative is to devote creative time in your daily schedule. And we're talking about 10 minutes here, at least 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day for you to do something creative that inspires you. For me, it's cooking. For you, maybe it's drawing, maybe it's reading, maybe it's writing. But you exercising that creative muscle on a regular basis is going to really improve your marketing efforts, your business efforts as well. Because right now, creativity is really what we need. Have you seen like car insurance commercials lately? They are not just lately, for the last several years, they are super creative and they're talking about the most boring thing, car insurance, right? It's like they had to be creative, right? So it's like getting out of that comfort zone, trying new things, adding story, adding engagement to it. And the only way to do that is through practice, through getting out of your habits and through practice. So I want you to try those tactics. Tonight, start simple, brush your teeth with the opposite hand. Tomorrow or whenever you drive again, go a different way to somewhere that you've already been before. If you're going to the grocery store, try another way to get there. And you'll start to see how you notice things that were like, oh, wow, this is a nice view, a nice scenic view. And third thing, create specific time in your daily schedule just for creative activities. I'll give you this quick story as well. I was working with Sean, actually. Sean is my life coach, and Sean was on the session right before this. And in one of our life coaching sessions, we were talking about my business and how it was at a stagnant point. This was, I think this was 2016, 2017. He and I had this conversation, and he told me about a story of one of his clients that she was having a similar problem, and how her business was stagnant, or she wasn't finding fulfillment in her business. And he asked her, what gives you fulfillment? What gives you joy? What brings you joy? And she said, after a while, she started talking about how she used to swim as a kid, how she was a competitive swimmer in high school and how she loved it and all this great stuff. And then Sean just told her, your homework assignment, I want you to go swimming today. And then after going swimming, I want you to swim at least 3 times a week. And that was his assignment to her. And then he turned around and told me, so Marcus, what brings you joy? And I was like, cooking. I love to cook. I love to cook from scratch. And one thing that I found and I learned was that cooking was my happy place. And it seems like things that are totally unrelated, but my business started doing better. My clients were happier. I was happier. Employees of mine were happy. Everybody was happier in my business when I started cooking from scratch 3 times a week, when I was in my creative space, when I was doing something that fulfilled me and that enabled me to be more creative. So find whatever that is in your happy space, what makes you happy, what makes you fulfilled, and make sure you do that on a regular basis. That's going to help your creativity muscle along with the other tactics that we talked about here as well. So great question. I'm glad you asked that because there's a lot I wanted to talk about creativity that we obviously couldn't talk about in the session. So great question. Thank you so much for asking that. Next question. Next question is, it's asking about, it's from Anonymous. There's no name. What are the roots as it pertains to marketing that you mentioned? Roots of marketing. Excellent question. So one of the things, actually, we were talking about this on the last session too with Sean Smith. Roots, I like to say, roots produce the fruits. So I believe I gave an example of how so many people, they're not liking the results they're getting. And the analogy that you might be talking about was if we have a tree out in our yard and that tree's planted and that tree is producing lemons, right? And we don't want a lemon tree. We want an apple tree. So what society tells us is, all right, go off and cut those lemons off and you can tape up apples. Hey, instant gratification, instant solution. You now have an apple tree. But the problem is that's not going to work. That's not going to last, right? And so the roots of marketing is the same way, and marketing is the same way. Marketing is highly, because of the visible aspects of marketing, which are advertising, promotion, social media, websites, logo. Those are the visible aspects of marketing. But the analogy that we like to use here at my agency is think of marketing as an iceberg. if it's anything that you can see or perceive with the 5 human senses, see, touch, hear, and the other 5 senses, I forget what they are. But think of that as the 5% of the iceberg that you can see. That 5% of the iceberg that you can see would not exist without the 95% of the iceberg underneath the water that you cannot see. And that's kind of that is actually what holds up that 5% of the iceberg that you can see. So marketing is the same way. Websites, social media, logos, all these things that everybody's talking about, that's just the surface level stuff, but it's beneath the surface what actually gives those things value. So the roots versus fruits, we have to work on the roots if we want different fruits. And because those marketing aspects that people are talking about are the fruits that they see, we need to go down into the roots. Let's work on those roots. What are those roots looking like? The roots in your marketing are going to look like your vision. What is the vision for your company? What is the world look like as a result of the efforts that you put in with your business? What does the world look like 10 years from now? That's your vision. What does your mission look like? How do you achieve that vision, or what are you doing to achieve that vision? Your core values, things that nobody is, and these aren't the sexy things that everybody is talking about, right? But these are the roots of your marketing. These are the roots of your business. We get questions every day. How can I design better graphics? How can I design better, what's a good logo? Or we need to have a website up, all of these things that are surface. And we're like, okay, great. Yeah, we can do those things. But we'll ask these end-up questions, what is your vision? What is your mission? What are your core values? And they're looking at us like deer in headlights. And they're like, well, that stuff doesn't matter. We just need a website up and we need it up quick. Doesn't that sound like everybody in society, right? The problem with that, now you're going to become one of, forget the actual number. I think I forget the number, but it's several billion web pages that are out there that most of them are complete and utter, I was going to say crap, but I couldn't think of another word, but they're complete and utter crap. They don't get you the conversions. People aren't signing up for your products and services because they're designed poorly. They don't have a core message. They don't connect with the end user, right? So all of these problems stem from the root causes of marketing, the root issues in marketing, the root issues in business. What do you stand for as a business? What are your core values as a business? What are some things that are irrevocably unshakable, uncompromisable as it relates to you and your business? What do you believe in as a business owner, right? These are what we're talking about the roots. Another important aspect about the roots is mindset. What is your mindset of not only you as the business owner, but the mindset of those you're trying to reach? What is the mindset of your ideal client? And when we talk about ideal client, many of us have not defined who the ideal client is or who our ideal client is. So we're trying to promote things to everybody, and in the online world that ends up reaching nobody because the message is diluted, it's not specific, and everybody else out there has a non-specific, very diluted message, right? So we have to stand out. We have to stand out in defining what our roots are, and that is what's going to protrude through our marketing messages. So I mentioned mindset had 2 parts. Our own mindset plus the mindset of our ideal customer. So make sure you define your ideal customer as well. Looks like this actually addresses another question from Anonymous talking about the ideal customer question. So I wrote that ideal customer question into this. The question was just about the ideal customer. Can we go into more detail? I defined my ideal customer before and it's not working. And so we'll actually wrote that question into the rest of the answer of this question because they're very similar. With the roots, the mindset of your ideal customer. And before I get into deeper on that ideal customer, also focusing on your strategy as well. So a lot of times people, because we're busy business owners, right? We don't have time, or we think we don't have time to develop our strategy or focus on our strategy or focus on some of these fundamental things. But it's one of the concepts where it's like a slingshot. The farther you pull back that slingshot, the faster you can project forward, right? So I want you to think about it like that. Yes, it's going to take time. Yes, it's going to require you to pause a little bit, but it's a concept of stopping or slowing down in order to speed up. Think of like, what do you call it? The race car drivers, right? They're on this racetrack and now I need to pull into this pit. Yeah, they need to pull into this pit to get service on the car. The race is still going on, but without pulling into this pit, I'm not going to make it to the end of the race anyway, no matter how fast I go, because the car is going to break down. That's really the state that many of our businesses are in. Slow down to speed up. Spend some time focusing on your foundation, on your vision, your mission, your core values. What do you stand for, your ideal customer, and that strategy, as well as your customer journey. That's another important part of your foundation, or those roots. What does your customer journey look like from the time that they are not aware of you to the time that they are complete with you, whenever that is? Map out that customer journey so that they are able to, so that you're able to align with them every step along that journey. That's going to be extremely important as well. So there's several aspects to roots, but those are some of the key aspects that to focus on when it comes to the roots of marketing and the roots of business. And if we want to be technical, the roots of life as well, because all of these things are connected and intertwined. And that was a segue as I was answering the ideal customer question. So the ideal customer, yeah, that's extremely important. And we get this a lot when we tell people to define their ideal customer, their ideal client. And we say, no, not an age range, if we're aiming to reach women between the ages of 40 and 45, or we're aiming to reach women between the ages of 28 and 39. That's not your ideal customer. That's a range. We're talking about, we want you to define a character, just like your character in your favorite movie or your favorite drama. Our ideal client is Vanessa, and Vanessa is a woman. She lives in Windermere. She is age 32. She has 2 kids, ages X, Y, and Z. She has this life partner who does X, Y, and Z. We define a character, and we are laser focused on this character to do our promotion and our marketing. Now you might say, well, wait a minute. Vanessa is just one person I'm trying to reach. I'm also trying to reach Bob. I'm also trying to reach Chad. I'm also trying to reach Janet. I'm also trying to reach these other people. We have to define them each separately, because that's how they're going to find us in our marketing messages online. Now, start with 1. Do not go off and try and define 6, 7, 8 ideal customers. Start with 1 for starters, right? And if you have already defined your ideal customer and that's not working, usually what we find that people have done is they haven't really defined their ideal customer. They've done some quick worksheet, and that's a good start, but there's a lot more underneath the surface that we need to do and that we need to address, right? So when defining your ideal customer, make sure you address these things. You do want to define them as a character, but you do also want to go in depth on what are their pain points around the problems that your products and services solve for them. What are the pain points of their problems that your products and services solve for them? And list several. List as many as you can. What are their pain points? By pain points, things that they any challenges that they have around the problems that your products and services are a solution for. List those out. List them out in detail, right? And another thing you want to define, and this sounds similar, but it's actually a little different. What keeps them up at night around those pain points, right? Is it that they're afraid their business is going to not be able to survive the pandemic or something like that? What keeps them up at night? That's that hardcore fear that they have. Are they going to lose their business, lose their house? Their family's going to have to live under a bridge or something. That's what we're talking about. That would keep somebody up at night, right? You want to define this, because once you define this, you're now able to align with what those fears are. If you have a genuine solution for those fears and can address those fears, right? And address those challenges. So add that to your definition of your ideal customer. We actually have an exercise in my agency that we have every single one of our clients go through for each campaign that we're running, for each ideal client that we're looking to define. And that questionnaire is about 27 questions long, and that's just so we can understand better who their ideal client is for that particular campaign. That's another kind of caveat. Each campaign that we run usually has a different ideal customer for it, or an ideal client for it. If you're just beginning, don't worry about that. Just start with 1. Just start with 1 and start your marketing messages from there. And once you define that ideal client, and once you have found like, okay, we're starting to get results, now add on a second, add on a third, right? So it'll take you probably several weeks at least to start to see some traction in that, but you want to start small and then grow. A lot of people want to grow and then just figure out how to fill stuff in along the way. That is a perfect recipe for a disaster. Don't do that. Start small. All right. So great question around ideal client. Great question around the roots. Several other questions here. Let me siphon through your questions because, thank you for the comments. Thank you very much for your comments. It's our pleasure. Absolutely our pleasure to come to you. All right. We have another question. Looks like, what do you suggest? Okay. Where do you suggest we address? I'm sorry, I can't read. I think I see your question. Okay, no problem. Or I think I understand your question. Where do you suggest we invest our dollars, time, and energy? Is kind of the way I'm rephrasing it. And this question comes from Abhishek. Hey, Abhishek. Where do you suggest we invest our time, dollars, and energy? Excellent question when it comes to marketing, because there's so many places. You have an infinite many number of choices of where to address your time, energy, and money, right? We have an acronym here at my agency called SYSTEM, and that SYSTEM stands for Save Yourself Stress, Time, and Energy. It's SYSTEM. Save yourself, stress, time, energy, and money. All right. So that's what SYSTEM stands for, an acronym. And the way to do that is through systems, right? So once you have a system, and by system, we don't mean something technical. We don't mean the latest product on the shelf. We don't mean a software or something. We're not talking about that. With a system, we're talking about a process, a standard operating procedure for your business. Most businesses we see and work with don't have them before coming to work with us. And so a lot of times they're doing things, they're kind of throwing spaghetti against the wall, seeing what works and like, hey, that works. We got money in, but next month, now we got to do it all over again because we don't know what worked. We don't know how it worked. We don't know what we did to get how it worked. We just don't know. Right. So a system is just a standard operating procedure that helps you start to see this pathway of what's working and what's not working, right? So defining your processes for example, when you onboard a customer, what does that process look like? What happens? Do they get a welcome call? Do they get a welcome email? They probably get a receipt after they've made their investment with you. What are your touch points after they've made that receipt? So that will be a process, right? We get so many questions asking about what tools to use. Should we be on Facebook? Should we use MailChimp? Should we use Aweber? Should we use all these great different tools? The tool is only going to optimize the system that you've come up with. And that system being that those standard operating procedures and that and your processes. So without the processes, without the system, it doesn't matter what tool you use, right? Because the tool isn't going to do you really any good because you don't have a system, you don't have processes that are helping direct that system. All right. So focus on your systems, focus on your procedures, focus on your processes, define those so that you can start to get some predictability in your business. Once you start to get some predictability in your business, okay, I have the system and I know this is going to generate, because we've seen it for the last 3 months, this is going to generate an extra $10,000 a month in our business, which we can use and repurpose elsewhere. That predictability helps relieve a lot of stress, helps you save a lot of time, and definitely a lot of energy. All right. So define and get your system, or get a system, meaning your procedures, standard operating procedures, your processes, things of that sort. Another thing I'll add to this, where you should also spend your time, energy, and money is, and this probably will shock you, but around mindset. Marketing, I've said it before, marketing is an art that masks itself as a science. So everybody's looking for kind of the formula for marketing success, but it's not a formula, it's more of a recipe. And a recipe is really an art form, right? Think about a chocolate chip cookie. Has every chocolate chip cookie you've had in your life, has it always tasted like another chocolate chip cookie? No, they taste different. Some are soft, some are hard. I love the chocolate chip cookies that have the crispy edge and the soft center. Yeah, I'm getting a little hungry, right? But it's like a recipe. It's not a formula, right? And so I got lost in my train of thought when I started talking about those chocolate chip cookies. Wow, I do have a crazy sweet tooth. Let me back up in my thought where I was going with that. Marketing's not a formula, it's a recipe. And that was something I was using I don't remember. Let me know in the chat what I was talking about with that, because I totally lost my train of thought when I started talking about chocolate chip cookies. And it was going to be a good point too. I can't remember where I was going with that. But while you're reminding me of where I was before I continue with that, I'll at least continue with the part that I knew that was after it. So it's a recipe, right? And depending on how you mix these various different ingredients, determine the outcome of this chocolate chip cookie. Now I remember where I was. I was on mindset. So your mindset is what's going to help determine that recipe for your business, and the recipe for your business, the recipe for your marketing success, right? That mindset, getting out of the mindset of this kind of transactional marketing environment that we live in today to this relational marketing environment, to one that's focused on heart-led behaviors, to one that's focused on the consumer, right? To one that has the consumer first place, to one that doesn't have promoting ourselves out there just all the time, because that's this kind of this old transactional based marketing. It works for the big boys who have a lot of money. It works for our clients who have millions of dollars to spend every hour on promotion, right? So for small businesses who don't have that type of money, it's not going to work. Even for the businesses that do have that type of money for it to work, we encourage them, let's go deeper on your vision, your mission, and some of these foundational pieces, so that we can make those things get you more bang for your buck. And they're usually all in for it, right? And so your mindset, spending more time on just understanding your mindset, the mindset of your clients, and evolving that to how you can be a better service. More money comes into your business, the more people you help solve their problems and you help alleviate their solutions. So that's another reason it's important for you, going back a few questions before, to define your ideal client and ask, what are their pain points? What keeps them up at night around those pain points, so that you can now speak into how they experience their pain. Because remember, you as a business owner, you have a different perception of their pain. You already know the solution. It's not necessarily a pain for you, right? You have to get into their language. You have to get into their mindset, ask them from their language and their wording what their pain is. And then you're able to now communicate with them on their level, as opposed to you trying to be, like we were talking about earlier, fish in water. I had an example that popped in my head and I forgot it that quick too. And it was a good one. Oh, it was a good one. It'll probably come to me while I'm answering another question. But I remember what it was. So if we were doing this summit and we were giving you great content, just giving you all sorts of great information, but we were delivering it in a language that we made up, it doesn't matter how great the content is, because your ears can't hear it, right? One of my mentors gave me this quote, and it's really stuck with me my whole life. He said, I think he said it's in one of the Talmud, one of the religious books, but the quote is, "You are commanded not to tell them what you know they cannot hear." You are commanded not to tell them what you know they cannot hear. So all that means is you have to make sure you're speaking in their language, right? If you're not speaking in their language, and it doesn't mean that, hey, we're both speaking English, I'm speaking in their language. No, speaking in the language that they experience their problem in. Let me give you an example. As a marketing agency, we know the root causes of a lot of the problems a lot of our customers are having and a lot of our clients are having. So we know a lot of times the problem is around conversion, which just means they're not buying. Their problem is around they're not keeping track of their numbers. So they don't know what's working and why. And when something does work, they don't know why it worked. We know that a lot of the problems is around their messaging and how their messaging is not connecting with people. That's what we know as a marketing agency, just for example. Well, those are real issues, but for sake of this example, the way the client will say, they're experiencing their challenges is, hey, we're down in sales this month. Our website is not pulling in any traffic. Our cost of advertising is going up, right? These are the challenges from the words of our customers, right? We know what some of those root challenges are, but they experience them and they tell them to us in their language, and that helps us address it to their language. It doesn't do me any effective to say, oh yeah, you have a conversion problem related to your analytics and the implementation of the meaningless of your message. All that's marketing talk, right? I can talk like that in our team, right? But to them, I have to communicate to them, hey, why is your website not getting traffic? In layman's terms, in their terms, right? So that's all we mean. Make sure you're commanded not to tell them what you know they cannot hear. Speak in their language, and the best way to do it is to get their language, what their challenges are, what they're experiencing, so that now you can address those challenges to them in their language, right? It's funny also, this also has a lot of implications in relationships. A lot of the core principles that we use as a marketing agency. I was actually invited on a podcast to speak about communication differences between men and women in relationships, because it's actually very similar. You may have read a book called The 5 Love Languages, written by, I don't remember who, but written by a guy. And he was talking about how if your love language is, let's say, touch, and that is my love language, but my girlfriend's love language is words, if I'm communicating my love to her in my love language, she's not able to receive that love language because her love language is different than my love language, right? So it's about knowing that love language of your client. I never said it like that. I like that. It's about knowing the love language of your client. And to know their love language, you got to know what their pain language is too, and how they experience their pain. So great question. How can I save time, energy, and money? Absolutely great question. All right. We're coming up on the end of the session here shortly. I will get a few more questions in if I, wow, you guys are blowing up the question chat. Yeah, now you blow up the question chat. Now that we're going near the end, but we can go a little bit over. It's all right. So we'll go a little bit over to answer a few of these. Okay. Here's just reading your comments. Thank you so much for the praise, and thank you so much for your commentary. A lot of you are saying great summit, learned so much. We really thank you for that. We really thank you that we're able to bring you so much value. It's our pleasure and privilege to be able to do such. So thank you for being with us. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for spreading the word. We're already working on the next summit. And have some great speakers lined up, including some celebrity speakers we're really excited about. So make sure you're on our list now. If you're in this room, you're on our list. If you're watching the replay, you're on our list, and you'll get that information on how to access those, that next summit as well. And we also, so I will say this, since we do have a lot more questions than we can probably get to in our time left, we also have several free Ask Me Anything calls about marketing and sales, just because we love what we do. Any doubts? Yeah, we love this stuff. We love what we do. And we know a lot of people have questions out there, especially now during these times. So you'll also be receiving emails for those as well, where you can just come on live and ask us these questions to your heart's content. And the questions that we aren't able to get to today, we will save, and we will make sure that we either include those in an Ask Me Anything session, or find some sort of way to make sure we get you the answers you are desiring. All right, so just fishing through some of your questions to get another question or two to answer here live for you. Thank you again for the love. Thank you for the love. And thank you for your takeaways. Many of you are listing what your takeaways are. And we just finished the Q&A with Sean Smith, so a lot of your comments are addressing Sean as well. Yes, Sean is the man. Absolutely. Question about, here's a good one from one of our sessions today. One of the marketing session we had today, Marketing in Uncertain Times, day 3. today that we had right before this session. The question is around the mindset of selling. How do you suggest we position ourselves for this new mindset around selling? Great question. So in my marketing and in certain times presentation that I gave this morning, well, depending on what part of the world you're in, this morning, this afternoon, this evening, or even tomorrow, so depending on where you are in the world, what I want the first point, and if you didn't attend that session live, please do watch the replay. The replays will be up shortly after we conclude today, or might already be up by now, but they'll definitely be up shortly within the next hour or two. In the session today, the marketing session today, one of the things I talked about was change your mindset around selling, because selling has a negative connotation in our society, and for good reason. There are a lot of people that they weren't responsible with the way they sold. They were out just to make a buck at the expense of who they got the buck from, which is just, we're all, that's not good, right? We should be doing integrity-based business. We should do integrity-based sales and heart-based sales and heart-based business. That's one of our core values at our company, right? We believe strongly in it. And so what I was saying earlier in today's session was shift your mindset around selling. Don't look at selling as, hey, me getting money from somebody. Look at when you approach selling as you are offering someone an invitation to take action in their lives to whatever their next level is, right? And so no matter what your business, that sales is an invitation for them to take action in their lives to the next, to their next best level of their life, right? Give you a perfect example, marketing. We're a marketing agency. We have marketing services, and we know for a fact that as when people purchase our products, purchase our services, etc., that's going to help them get to the next level in their business, next level in their career, next level in their lives and livelihood, giving them more time for their family, right? And when I look at it from that standpoint, it's not really selling in the traditional sense. It's connection. It's all about connection with that person. It's all about helping them live a better life, right? So I'm inviting them to take the next level I'm inviting them for them to raise to the next level in their life through what we are offering, right? And many of you may not know this, but sales and marketing are two totally different fields, right? Requiring two totally different skill sets. And for years of my 22-year marketing career, I would resist sales because I did not want to be that snake oil salesman, right? I didn't want to be that person that we just naturally have a guard up, right? This is a little fun fact. Your brain, your subconscious brain, actually, when it goes to pay or go to buy something, it actually triggers the same area of your brain as physical pain triggers, right? And so we know that now about money, about anytime we are talking about money or buying something, or if you're doing a webinar and asking people to buy something, it triggers the same part of the brain that is triggered when you have physical pain, right? So in addition to the snake oil salesman, we have an embodied response, a biological response to sales, right? Or a biological response to being sold to. All right. So that's what we mean about changing your mindset around selling, or better yet, me inviting you to have a different perspective around selling. First of all, in order to do this, we believe that you should be genuine and authentic. If you're not being genuine and authentic about your sales, that's the first problem, right? If you're not head over heels excited about your product or service, if you wouldn't buy your product or service, these are all telltale root signs that we need to start there, right? But once you have those, once you are head over heel excited about your products and services, once you are excited to bring those products and services to the world, and you believe in the results of those products and services will deliver, now you can sell from a heart-based place and truly invite people to take action in their own lives. And some people will be all over it. Some people will shy away from it, and that's fine. Let people self-select. Those that are ready to work with you, great. Those that aren't, great. And our motto is find a way to serve those people who aren't ready to work with you right now as well. Because lo and behold, many people just need to build that bond and build that relationship with you a lot more before they purchase with you, right? So we like to say no is never a not, no is never a no. No is not a not now, right? So two big factors with that. So that's what we were talking about with the change your mindset around selling. Think of it as an invitation to take action, or you giving someone an invitation to take action to the next level of their lives, as opposed to the traditional way of selling. But only that if you are doing integrity-based selling, only that if you are genuinely passionate about what you bring to the world and to the marketplace. Great question. Great question. We love this stuff. Any doubts? Like we absolutely love this stuff. And I'll say this as well. We did our work ourselves to really dig deep into what is it that we believe as a marketing company? What do I believe as the owner of this marketing agency? And through some self-work, one of the things that I discovered, I was looking for what is my passion. I'm like, my passion is marketing. I love marketing. But when I started to think about it, 100 years ago, or maybe 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, there's no such thing as marketing, really. At the dawn of human existence, there was no such thing as marketing. And I'm a believer that our passion and our core purpose are things that are beyond the surface level things of what we have today, right? And so I'm like, okay, marketing wasn't invented when the universe was invented. So what is it that is my core passion? What is it truly at its root? And one thing that I discovered was, oh my goodness, it's about connection, right? I love connecting with people. I love connecting people. Marketing is just the tool that we use to help make more better, authentic connections between people, right? Between businesses, between brands. And when I made that realization, it was like a rebirth in my business. I've had this business now for 12 years, and that gave us almost like new life because we found our passion within what we do as a business, right? So go back to say that with integrity-based sales, make sure you know what it is your passion is. Spend time figuring your passion, your vision, your mission, those root foundational things that we talked about in what's important. What are those root things that are important in your marketing and in your business, right? So just wanted to add that. Great question. All right. No, we're running over a little bit, so we'll take one more question before we wrap it up. Thank you so much for all your comments, for all your praise. It's truly our pleasure to bring this to you. We really want to just continue to bring you great value. All right. So final question. I'm gonna select a good one here. We have one from Janet in Dubai. So hi, Janet in Dubai. And Janet's question reads as, if you should not define your marketing based on the budget, what would be the approach with limited funds? Oh, okay, good question. If you should not define your marketing based on your budget, what should be the approach with limited funds? Great question, Janet. Great question. So the question, and it's relating to something I said, and I forget which day it was. Could have been today or one of the other days in our 3-part marketing series, Marketing in Certain Times. Defining your marketing based on the budget, bad way to go altogether. One, because most people are doing it incorrectly. So most people are looking around their finances and saying, hey, I got $500 to do some marketing. Let me go out there and do some marketing. First of all, marketing is bigger than just promotion. So when people are talking about marketing, they're probably meaning promotion. They're probably meaning advertising. And that's just the very visible face of marketing. Marketing is really about the mindset, the strategy, connecting with your customers, all those things that's beneath the iceberg. So that's the first thing. But the second thing, when you're talking about not making your marketing on the budget, or not defining your marketing by the budget, because marketing is really about the connection. If you haven't established a connection, or you don't even know how to connect, you can throw all sorts of money at it and it's still not going to have the impact that you want, right? So especially specific for small businesses, many who don't have a large budget, many of whom who may have limited funds, especially now. The biggest thing we can say to do in this case is to start with the connection, start with the genuine connection, and start with the genuine connection in places where your ideal client already are. So on social media, they're probably somewhere on social media, but where? Not just which platform, not just on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Where are they gathering on social media? What groups are they a part of? What business pages do they like? On Instagram, what other places do they like? What other posts are they like? Where are they? And be a part of their conversation. Now, it's important to note here, we're not talking about you finding where they are and then promoting to them. One, that's bad karma. You don't want to go in someone else's group and promote your products and services or anything. But once you find where they are, now you can simply be of service to them. You can answer questions. Let's say you're in a Facebook group. You can answer their questions. And after you answer about 2 or 3 questions, people are going to be like, hey, Janet here, she's an expert in looks like sales, and she's answering a whole bunch of people's sales questions. Maybe I can ask a sales question and she'll answer. And now you're bridging that familiarity and you're building that trust, right? So now you have this principle of your customers now coming to you, seeking you out, because they now see you as the authority, as opposed to you going out trying to do this outbound marketing, spending these outbound dollars when you have limited funds. And it just makes for, we like to use this analogy. A lot of our customers come to us saying, we're tired of chasing customers. And I say, great, you shouldn't be chasing your customers anyway. And the only reason you'll be chasing your customers is because they're running away from you. Else you wouldn't have to chase them, right? So how do you invite your customers to take part with you, to take part in what you're doing with your business? That's by being of service to them, whether they buy from you or not. So we host this summit. Thousands of people register. Are all thousands of people going to be our paying clients? Absolutely not. But we're providing a service, and now they looked at as the authority by many people who are giving us, saying, oh, wow, this was great. So much great, helpful information. They'll probably come to the next summit. Next month or 2 months from now, they might be working on a marketing campaign like, hey, I remember we attended the summit. It was this crazy guy. He was a little kooky, but he had a lot of great things. Maybe I should, send him a note, send him an email and ask him some questions, or maybe set up a call, right? So that's a great way to, especially when you have limited funds, to start this type of inbound type of marketing versus this outbound type of marketing of just spending dollars. Outbound type of marketing would also include things like advertising on television, right? It's the promise of getting your brand or your thing seen by millions of people. But that's only as effective as the back end that you've created that will support millions of people seeing your product or thing and acting on whatever it is that they saw. So a lot of times we'll see people, they'll try doing advertising and stuff on their own and such. And because Facebook makes it relatively easy, you can learn how to do Facebook ads in a couple of days. But that's the science of it. The effectiveness of advertising is in the art of it. What's your messaging like? How are you connecting with people through this technology? How are you, like to call it scroll stoppers. What messaging is going to get them to stop scrolling on their phone? Because most 90% of social media takes place on your phone, at least in the US and in various countries. What's going to make them stop scrolling on their phone, stop and look at your advertisement and give it more than 1.2 seconds of attention time, which is the average that it will get if it does stop, right? That messaging has to be powerful. It has to be direct. It has to be intentional. And we believe it has to be heart-based, right? Because that's truly how you're going to connect to people. You've probably, this probably isn't something that's new to you, maybe feeling people's energy, right? That same energy, believe it or not, goes through, it can pass through these things too, pass through the phone, pass through the computer, right? You want that same level of energy. So in short, focus on the connection, focus on how can I better connect with these individuals. The budget, all those other things don't really matter if you don't have the connection. Now, once you have the connection, you can now build your budget around that. I will say, no matter how limited your funds are, be purposeful in dedicating dollars to your marketing efforts every month. And by marketing efforts, not just your promoting and advertising efforts, but also your whether that be developing your what you call standard operating procedures, things of that sort. Put money, set aside money purposefully every single month, at least a couple of $100, at the very least, and build on it each month. So this month, I'm going to put aside $500 for marketing, and I have to spend it with marketing. Next month, it's going to be $550. Month after that, it's going to be $600. Make a commitment to yourself to do that. If you don't give yourself some type of marketing budget, it'll never appear. It'll never just happen. It'll never just happen out of thin air, because again, spending money activates the same part of our brain that physical pain activates. It's something that we kind of naturally resist. Okay. So make it purposeful, build that muscle of setting aside some funds for your marketing, at least a couple $100 a month, and build on that. Right. And it might be 6 months before you actually start to do something with that money, but set it aside and don't touch it. Make sure you make it known that that money is for marketing. And what I'd also add is, don't try to do this yourself. Please don't try to do this yourself. Why? Because a lot of people are out there trying to do what they see on social media, trying to do what they see other people doing on social media. And it's like a recipe, right? You didn't see what all went into that recipe for it to work for that person. And so now you're trying to copy their recipe while only looking at the finished product. And that's a perfect recipe for a disaster, right? So get help in doing these. We are here to help you. There's so many, and we're not just saying that for us, but get the help of someone who's experienced in how do I put these different pieces of the marketing puzzle together. Marketing itself is a recipe. Your social media marketing should work well with your email marketing, should work well with your website marketing, should work well with your overall marketing strategy, which should also work well with your business strategy. But if you're a master trumpet player and you're in this orchestra and you're trying to conduct the orchestra while you're playing the trumpet, you can't effectively play your instrument and conduct the orchestra at the same time. Worse yet, when you're that master trumpet player in this orchestra, now you're also a master trumpet player with several other master trumpet players who are right next to them, have several other master saxophone players, master drummers, and all these other things. That orchestra conductor at the top, he's or she is the strategist. I know exactly when to have these master trumpet players come in, and exactly when to have these drummers come in, exactly when to have all these pieces come together so that it makes a symphony. Else, I can have the right trumpet players, I can have the right drummers, I can have the right saxophonists, but if I don't have that strategist or that help from that strategist, being that orchestra conductor, I have this noise, I have this catastrophe whereas I wanted the symphony, right? Because I can have that trumpet player play the right note, but if it's the right note at the wrong time, it's still noise, right? I can have him come in at the right time, but if I don't have the saxophone players balancing how he comes in, it's not going to work. It's going to be noise, right? Same thing if that master trumpet player comes to me and says, hey, I have this great solo. It's not going to work well unless the rest of the orchestra is along for the ride. The same thing with the conductor, right? And this is what business owners are trying to do. We're trying to be the orchestra conductor while we are the trumpet player. But unfortunately, we just know how to play trumpet. We don't know how to conduct the orchestra, right? So have a strategist with you. Ask us questions. Like, again, we do these sessions for free because we know a lot of people can't necessarily afford agency level investments, right? So ask us questions, retain the services of a strategist so that you can conduct your orchestra, so that you can build on your business, so that you can build with the expertise and the talents that you have, and so that you can provide your God-given talents and services to the people that need your services and talents. Whew. I know I said a lot there, and I know we went way over the time, and all of you are still with us from that started with the session. So that's awesome and amazing. So thank you all so much for this session. Was this helpful for everyone? And we see a lot of your comments in the chat. Thank you so much for your praise. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you so much for spending these three days with us. This has been absolutely amazing. We have a lot more coming to you, a lot more summits, a lot more a lot more webinars. Several of them are free, so feel free to engage in those. You'll be getting emails about those. Let us know your takeaways. Let us know what you found helpful. Let us know if there were things that weren't helpful. Let us know that in the chat as well. This was amazing, an amazing summit. My favorite by far of the 6 summits that we've done so far, and have enjoyed every single moment of it. So thank you all for joining us. In your final words, go ahead and type them in the chat. This is our not only our sales and marketing Q&A, but our summit celebration. So celebrating a great Small Biz Better Summit, Your 2020 Vision Still Lives edition. So this is our celebration, and we thank you all for celebrating with us. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your praise. Thank you for your love. We appreciate you. We appreciate your questions and participation. We appreciate everything that you all have done to make this summit a success. This summit would not be a success without you attending, without you asking your questions. The summit would not be a success without our sponsors, Social Marquee, Better Marketing for Business Growth, and Vision Cake. Get a clear vision, align with that vision, and manifest that vision. And this summit would not have been a success without our amazing speakers contributing their content as well. So thank you all for such a great and amazing experience. Your comments, wow, this was great. This was helpful. So many nuggets. Thank you so much. Yeah, this was just absolutely mind-boggling for us. Absolute pleasure and joy for us. So with that, any other final questions, final comments, go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll leave the chat open for a few minutes to capture any additional comments, questions, and things that you have. So go ahead and leave that in there for us. And with that, we will call the Small Biz Better Summit, Your 2020 Vision Still Lives. We will call it a wrap. So thank you all for attending. We will be, we'll go ahead and leave your questions and comments in the chat. We'll leave that open for a few more minutes. And we will see you at the very next summit. And we'll see you in many of the sessions and events, classes, webinars that we'll be having in between the summits as well. So thank you all so much. Small Biz Better.